Hi, everyone. My name is Ashley Kirkwood. I am the owner of Mobile General Counsel, the firm for entrepreneurs, and I like to call myself the lit lawyer because I try to make legal fun and informative so that I can break it down to anyone to understand what's going on. So today we're talking about trademarks and specifically the importance of trademarks, what is a trademark, why you need one for your business, and the difference between things like trademarks, copyrights, patents, trade names, and trade secrets, because there's a lot of things that are going, there are a lot of different names that are out there for things like trademarks. So I want to make sure that I break that down and distinguish trademarks from other things that you may need for your business. So first, what is a trademark? So for those of you who are joining who've heard of trademarks but do not exactly know what they are, I'm going to break that down for you, and I'm going to do a bit of an illustration. So let's take a vacuum cleaner, for instance. A vacuum cleaner, the brand name of the vacuum cleaner, let's take Dykma. That name can be trademarked. It is the way that you protect your brand name, and it's important for anyone who does not want anyone else to utilize their business name that they get a trademark. Now, the technology behind the vacuum cleaner, that would be patented. So the way in which that invention works, and the invention itself could be patented, and then the manual, the user manual for the vacuum cleaner could be copywritten. So copyright protects written works. So those are kind of the big three differences, but that's essentially what a trademark is. It's a way that you protect your brand name. Now, you have some trademark rights prior to having it registered with the federal government. And there's a way that you protect those rights. Now, if you have a brand name that you're using, for instance, I use Mobile General Counsel. The first thing that I did when I started Mobile General Counsel was get the name trademarked. And I actually hired an attorney to do it. I didn't even do it myself because I know that for those of you out here who are brand specialists, most people may want to get their brands done, but they don't want to necessarily do it themselves, right? It's like you may hire a specialist even for your own business, even if you could do it yourself. So I'm a huge proponent of hiring someone to do things for your business so that you can service your clients to the best of your ability. So a trademark protects your brand name. Now, when we think of things like McDonald's, that name is trademarked. In the very beginning, McDonald's started out selling burgers. So they would have the name McDonald's trademarks for burger sales. But now McDonald's can have their name trademarked for burgers. They can have it trademarked for apparel because they utilize all of those different, they use that brand name on all of those different types of things. So when you think of your trademark and you think of your brand, it is one of the most important legal tools to get for your brand early, which is the most common question I get is when exactly should you get your trademark? When should you start thinking about getting things trademarked? I would say in the very beginning, when you are setting up your business, there's a few things that you should do. One, you should figure out your contract scheme. So what contracts are you going to use for your business? How are you going to protect the work that you do for your business? And then two, you want to get your trademark after you start using the name in commerce, which is a fancy way to say once you start buying and selling products under a particular brand name, you can then have it trademarked. There's also a way for you to get a brand name trademarked before you start buying and selling goods under that brand name, but it cannot be completely trademarked until you are actually using the name in commerce. The federal government wants to make sure that when you are branding a name, when you are taking it off the market for anyone else to use, that it is a name that you're actually using, not a name that you're thinking of using. So if you're at the stage of your business where you're considering using a brand name, then that may not be the best time to get it trademarked unless you are for sure you will eventually within 3 to 6 months start using that name in commerce. If so, there's a special trademark application that you can file to begin the process, but it won't be complete until you actually start using the name. So hopefully that makes sense in terms of what a trademark is. And now the second question is, why is it important? Why is a trademark important why is it important to have your brand name federally registered with the United States government? Well, it's important because you want to make sure that no one else can use that name. And if they do use that name, you get paid off of their use of the name through licensing or something else. So if you know that you're building up your brand, for instance, the Pink brand, PINQ, that name needs to be trademarked because as you continue to do business under that name for all the different facets that you do business under the name, other people will see, okay, well, it looks like she has a lot going on. This is a really good brand name. I'm going to start making pink shirts. And even if they use your name for something, like if they change it a little bit, that still constitutes trademark infringement. If they use the brand that you've built in any facet to buy and sell products that are similar to the products that you sell, and there's any likelihood of confusion between your brand and another brand, that would constitute trademark infringement. So for those of you that are building brands, you're building a brand, you believe in your business, you don't want anyone else to utilize that particular brand name, you want to get that name trademarked. Now, let's walk through the difference between trademarks and other types of intellectual property, okay? Because there's a lot of names out there that some of you have heard about trademarking and things of that nature. There's a lot of different names out there that you've already heard. One is, of course, trademark. It's used interchangeably with copyright all the time. And this is something that consistently happens and that I always tell people to be wary about. Like, make sure that you are using the names appropriately. So trademark gets confused with copyright often, but they are completely different. So you would get your brand name trademark, the name under which you do business. That name could be trademarked. But you would get your book copywritten. So if you've written a book, you would get that copywritten. So for me, I have a currency of, my podcast name is called The Currency of Confidence. My book is also called The Currency of Confidence. I would get the brand name for the podcast trademarked, and I would get the individual book copywritten so that the contents of the book are copywritten. Now, what is the difference between a trademark and a patent? So these are the other things that get confused often as well, is your trademark protects your brand name. Your patent protects your invention. So if you invent something and it's unique enough to warrant a patent, like you are creating a new way for people to clean their floors. So it's not a vacuum cleaner, it's not a mop, it's a hybrid between the two. That particular invention, the way in which you invented that, and it's never been done before, so it's unique, you would get a patent for that. Now, the name that you call the invention would be the thing that is trademarked. Another thing that comes up a lot is I get asked about trade names. Now, this is just the name under which you do business. It doesn't have any trademark protection just because it's the name under which you do business. So I do business under Mobile General Counsel. That's my trade name. Whether or not I had that name filed with the federal government, that would still be my trade name. But you don't sue for trade name infringement. You sue for trademark infringement. And your name is protected such that you can sue when you have it trademarked. Okay. So those are kind of the big difference. So if someone says like, I own the trade name, why do I need the trademark? Those are just two separate things. And one thing to note, each individual state, you register your business name with the state. So let me know if that's clear to everyone. You're going to register your business name with the state. So when I wanted to start my business in the state of Illinois, I went to the Secretary of State of Illinois and I wrote out the name I wanted to use. They ran a search within the state to see whether anyone else within the state was utilizing that name. Okay. Now they found that no one else within the state of Illinois was using Mobile General Counsel. Does that mean that I can get that name trademarked? And feel free to just leave your answers in the chat. It doesn't. It does not mean that I can get that name trademarked. What it means is that no one else within the state is using that name. So this is where a lot of people get confused. The state will run a name check to see whether anyone within your state is using the name, but they don't run a check to see whether anyone else in the world or in the country is utilizing that name. So the important part of getting your name trademarked would be that, one, it tells you, the reason you get it done early is because it tells you early on whether or not you can utilize that particular name, because the state will let you use it even if it will constitute trademark infringement for someone else. So that's really important to note. So what can you do right now, today, after this training to figure out whether or not someone is utilizing your name? There are a few places I recommend you check. One, do a Google search, and don't just look on the first page. Look on the 20th page. Like, do a really deep dive Google search to see whether or not anyone else is utilizing your name. Two, go on GoDaddy and do a search on your do a search for your name. So just look, like I use Mobile General Counsel. So I would go on GoDaddy and search mobilegeneralcounsel.com, generalcounsel.com, mobilegc.com, all variations of that name to see whether anyone else is using the domain name. Why is that? Because if someone else already has the domain name, you can then go to that domain name and see whether they are using the name that you'd like to use for the same category of goods that you'd like to have it use it for. Now, there are some people that will take the risk of utilizing a name that someone else is using. And that's dangerous for a lot of reasons. The main reason why that is dangerous is because you don't want to spend a lot of money building your brand. So you have your brand colors together, you have your domain name, you have your website, and then you find out a few years down the line that someone else is using it. Another common mistake I see is that people believe that because they've been doing business under a particular name for a significant amount of time, then that means no one else is using that name. And that's not always the case. That's not always the case. So you want to make sure that no one else is utilizing that name. And the only way to do that is by doing a thorough search. It's called a knockout search. That's kind of what attorneys call it. So I would recommend you have an attorney, even if you don't have a lawyer to file your trademark, you can have a lawyer piecemeal it and have them at least research whether anyone else is utilizing that name. That is a prudent thing to do, and you should start doing it as soon as you start selling goods and services under a particular brand name. It's extremely important that you do so, because I've had clients that have gotten a letter 2 years into their business saying that they were infringing on a name, and indeed they were. They came to me at the point they got the cease and desist letter, not at the point that I could have protected them in the beginning. And it turns out that someone else was using that name before them. They didn't have it trademarked, but they were using it before them, and thus it was improper for them. They couldn't then go and get that name trademarked. So it's not the first person to file, it's the first person to use the name. The reason you file is so that you can have protection for that name. And if someone else starts using it, you can sue them, send them a cease and desist, prove that you own the name, and receive damages and license the name. So you want to make sure that you're protecting your name. And I always tell people, if you truly believe that your business will be around in 5 and 10 years, you spending $1,000 to own the name is not a big deal. So if you believe you're building a 6-figure brand or a 7-figure brand, then you have to act like it. And by acting like it, you get it protected. I often, when I speak around the country at different entrepreneurship events, ask the question, I got $100 for anyone who can name a Fortune 100 company that's never consulted with a lawyer. And no one can ever name them. And it's just not practicable to think that you're going to build a solid business without consulting 2 people, 2 integral people. 1 is a lawyer, 2 is an accountant. And I would say 1 is an accountant, 2 is a lawyer. So those are the 2 people, like when you are starting your business, no matter where you're at now, you want to consult with those 2 people. You don't want the IRS coming for you, and you don't want your business to be shut down. And legal expenses are extremely, extremely expensive oftentimes, because people don't consult with lawyers on the front end, and then when they get in trouble, they need a lawyer right away, and it's typically for something urgent, and it's not a good situation. So that kind of goes through that. So you want to search, you want to do a Google search, you want to go on GoDaddy, and then you want to go to uspto.gov and do a test search, TESS search for your name, and see whether anything comes up. And when you run this search on the USPTO government's website, you'll see some of the applications, some things may come up for your name. You want to look for you want to search not just for the exact title of your name, but for all variations of your name, and even just words of your name. So for me, my name is Mobile General Counsel. I was searching for mobile, I was searching for General Counsel, I was searching for all variations of that name, I was searching for General Counsel Law, I was searching for anything that could sound similar to my name, because the test to see whether or not I can trademark a name is it going to be confusingly similar to any other names that currently exist? And if that is the case, then you want to make sure that you get that out the way early, and you want to know that as soon as possible, so that you're not spending a ton of money on your brand and you find out for whatever reason your application isn't approved. Now, the number one reason why people do not get their names trademarked, as you all might be able to guess, is because of cost. It's because it costs a lot of money to do. But that's a real concern. If you're just starting a business, cost is a huge concern. That's the number one reason people don't get their names trademarked. So I have a few different programs that I offer for people to get started in the trademark process that would help with the cost. So one, I do a Get the T on Trademarks class. Get the T on Trademarks is a course where I teach people how to file their own federally registered trademark application. And you can buy the course, or you can buy the course with the ebook. And so the ebook is like I think $15 or $30, and it allows you to see the steps that you need to take to walk through the trademark application process, and there's pictures, and it's a really good tool if you decide after the class to do it. And I've actually had people who've taken the 2-hour course, and at the end of the course, they filed their trademark application. And there's other people who take the course and then they're like, okay, this is way too much work, Ashley. I am not going to do this on my own. And then what they do is they get a special discount for taking the class that I attribute the cost of the class towards their trademark application process. So you don't lose anything by taking the course. And I think it's a great first step if you think you may be able to file it yourself and you want to be responsible for doing it yourself, or you're someone who wants to know everything about the process so that you can properly manage the attorney that you hire to do it. Now, the class is $199 right now, I believe, and I'm going to give everyone in the Pink community $25 off of that class. So you can just use code PINQ, and you'll be able to receive the discount on the class. And you can find the class at tontm.eventbrite.com. That's tontm.eventbrite.com. So that's the one way that you can do it. The second way is, entrepreneurs are busy. The trademark process takes about 6 to 8 months to complete. That being said, you want to be sure if you do it yourself that you are prepared to answer government inquiries. The government may ask you to write a brief to defend your trademark application. If that happens, you want to make sure that you do that timely, because if for whatever reason you don't do any of that timely, you don't answer the government in an efficient manner, they can dead your application. And I know that's using like a slang term, but literally that's like the actual term. They'll dead the application. It'll go from live to dead or pending to dead. And you do not get a refund if they do not accept your application. And the application cost is around $249, I believe, or it starts at $229. So it's around $230 for the lowest category of goods. And the way trademarking works is you have to have your brand name trademark for each category that you want to operate within. So I'll use myself as an example. Mobile General Counsel does legal services. That's one category. That's what we're going to get trademarked for. Now, let's say we wanted to do legal services and live events under that name. That would be another category that we would get trademarked for. And let's say we then wanted to sell clothes and shoes. That would be another category for which we would have to get trademarked for. And if we had a Mobile General Counsel book series, that would be another category for which we would get trademarked. So you want to make sure that you are that you have someone walk you through this process that knows the process, that understands the process. And if you're going to do a class, like the Get the T on Trademarks class, at the end of the class, you'll be able to gauge, okay, whether this is something you can do yourself or whether you would like to get some assistance in doing so. So I think the class is a pretty reasonable place to start. Now, the other piece of this is you want to make sure that you're doing this all in a timely fashion, but there's no time like the present to get started. So I mentioned that cost is one of the biggest inhibitors to people getting trademarked. For me to trademark someone's application from start to finish, including handling all government inquiries and writing a brief if the government challenges the application, it starts at $2,000. Now, for the month of January, which there's about 1 week left in January, I'm offering $400 off the cost of trademarking for people who submit their first payment by the end of the month. So I have a lawyer on layaway program that allows people to make payments on large purchases such as trademarks and contract packages and things of that nature. And so if that's something you're interested in, you can email info@mobilegeneralcounsel.com, info@mobilegeneralcounsel.com, and then we will get you set up on that and send you more information about the Lawyer on Layaway program, which allows people to get their legal services and basically put their legal services on layaway, quite frankly. So that's another thing that you can do as well. Now, you want to be sure that after you leave this training today, you do a couple of things. I always like to give people information that they can take away that they can use as takeaways to start protecting their brand name. So number one, you want to make sure you're not infringing on anyone else's trademark. That's number one. So search thoroughly to see whether anyone else is using a name that's similar to your name. And as we discussed, I recommend you do a Google search. Go on GoDaddy.com or any other domain name search engine and search for the domain name. Look on social media platforms, Facebook, Instagram, see whether you find anyone who's who's using your name on those platforms. This is 2019, so some businesses are doing work exclusively from a Facebook page. You also want to do a search on the test website. So go to uspto.gov and run a trademark search. You also want to search the Secretary of State database for your state for name variations that are similar but not the same. And when you do all these searches, search for names that are similar but not the same. So if you're doing business under cute candy t-shirts, you want to search for candy t-shirts, cute candy t-shirts, sweet shirts, like anything that could even sound similar to that name, to see whether you are infringing on someone else's trademark. And then secondly, you want to start utilizing the small TM symbol behind your name. So after you've done the search and you're like, okay, I don't think anyone else is using this, then behind your name, you want to start using the TM symbol, there's two symbols that you may have seen for trademarks. You see the symbol, the R with a circle around it, and then you see TM with a circle around that. You want to start using the TM symbol behind your name. And you want to start doing that just to show like this is your brand name and you are going to seek trademark protection for it and you're using it in commerce, right? You just want to put the world on notice that this is a name that you own, that you created, and that you believe you were the first to use. You definitely want to start doing that. And then third, you want to develop your business legal strategy, right? So you want to sit down this year. It's the beginning of the year. You have 11 more months, 11 in a week, more months to figure out what you're going to do this year to legalize your business. And if you'd like to get a trademark, then get started today on that process. Go look at the bank account for the business, figure out how much you can afford. If all you can afford is the $200 to take the class, then that's where you start. If you know that you want a lawyer to do your trademark, then you can email me at info@Mobile General Counsel and we can set up different payment plan options. People typically do 6 payments of $250 or 12 payments of $125 to get their trademark process started. And then that way you're in our system, and soon after you're paid, your application is filed and we have you well on your way to being protected. So those are some options that you can do today to figure out what you're going to do to protect your brand name, because you don't want to have the best colors in the world, the best brand in the world, and then someone can easily copy it. Now, I hope this training was extremely helpful and informative and you have what you need. I do want to reiterate this. We talked about what is a trademark. I want to talk about very briefly what you can have trademark. So you can have the name of your business trademark. You can have your slogan trademark. You can have your event name trademark. You can have your book series trademark. I think we have, is that a question? So those are some of the categories of goods that you all can have trademark. If you have any questions, please let me know. I'd love to answer your questions, but you definitely want to make sure that those are the types of things that you can have trademarked. Your brand name, your business name, your conference name, your event name, and one business can own multiple trademarks. One individual can own multiple trademarks. So it's something that you can get done at the outset so that you are protecting what you're building. And I really do hope this is helpful. So if you all are interested in the class, you can find that at teontm.eventbrite.com. And you can use code PINQ, PINQ, to get $25 off of the class. And if you are interested in me doing it yourself, you can find me at mobilegeneralcounsel.com. You can also email me at info@mobilegeneralcounsel.com. You can find me on Instagram at mobilegeneralcounsel.com. My personal page is at The Ashley Nicole Show. And for those of you who would like to get legal tips to your inbox, you're like, okay, well, how can I stay connected with you and learn more about what I can do to legalize my business for free? Then you can email, you can get your phones out right now and text Ashley, ASHLEY, to 66866. So you can text Ashley to 66866, and you'll receive an email back with asking you for your email address. And by doing that, then you will get your name on my email list and you'll get legal tips to your inbox weekly. So I hope this is helpful. Are there any questions right now?
I have a question.
Yeah.
Okay. Let me go to my list. So this is Brittany again. So some of our members submitted over a few different questions earlier, and I know time is short, so I'll just ask. Let me start off with my own. So
Great.
I'm developing software that we will not announce until next year.
Okay.
But with it being software, I'm assuming I would need a patent for that and possibly the trademark for the actual name of the app. Is that right?
Yeah, so that makes sense. And it depends on what the invention is. So you can have patents to protect your invention. The actual software, the code that you're writing out can actually be copywritten. So if you have a book,
Okay.
all of your like this is how you've done this, you can copyright that as well.
Okay,
The
cool.
code itself.
And the process for the patent, is that also 6 to 8 months as well?
Well, it is even longer. So
Oh,
yeah, patents take a really long time, and that's a different specialty than, so like I do trademarks, I don't do patents, but patents
okay.
can take a while to do, and they're more costly than trademarks. They're almost like typically 2 to 3 times the cost.
Mhm.
That's kind of what you can do. Now, there are some workarounds for that before you invest in a patent, and the workarounds include trade secrets. So you want to, whoever you share it with, have them sign a non-disclosure. You
Mhm.
sure that if you have people working for you, that the patent, the actual the code that you have for the software is considered a trade secret, meaning you don't share with anyone who's not essential to getting the business off the ground or getting the code off the ground. So those are the two
Mhm.
rounds until you get a patent. And then you also want to make sure that you have it written down somewhere. Copywriting it is pretty cheap, and then trademarking it is relatively, it's going to be a lot more inexpensive trademarking the brand name. But yeah, you may want a patent for that, because if it's an invention, then you want a patent.
Okay. Yeah, because all of the coding is, directly through our team, but we've contracted with one other company for, I guess, some of the logistics to turn it into the actual app, if that makes sense. So, of course,
Yeah.
my team has the non-disclosure, and then we have like a mutual agreement, not a mutual agreement, meaning I have a contract, and then they have a contract with me as well for the company I'm contracting with for the development of the app.
Mm-hmm.
But I guess my only confusion is they're not done, right? Well, collaboratively, we're all not done with the coding process. So would I need to first finish with the coding and then I'll get started with the process of the patent?
Yeah, you can file what's called a provisional patent. So most app developers
Okay.
file a provisional patent application first, which is standard. It's the standard utility patent application to secure like your
Hmm.
filing date. So there's always a way, even with trademarks, you can start the process, but it won't finish until you actually have an invention. That way, everything
Got it.
that you have. So you can start the process and then move on from there.
Gotcha.
The same with
Okay.
trademarks, actually. So if you have a great name, you don't want anyone to take it from under you, and you know that you'll start using it in commerce in 3 to 6 months. You can file your
Hmm.
trademark application, and then you'll just file like an addendum to it that costs a little bit of money, and then you'll go from there.
Got it. Got it. That makes perfect sense. Thank you so much for that.
Definitely.
I'll just ask, if they sent over 15 questions, I'm just going to choose one randomly. And if someone is listening and this is your question, then you may want to unmute yourself if you want to tag onto that. Let's see. I'll ask Christopher. What is my trademark for my business name? Oh, okay. She's saying, what if the name of her business is not trademarked, but she sees someone else is using a portion of the name in their business, but there's no trademark at all on file for the name in general?
Yeah, so that becomes the issue, because you have to, when you go to court, you need documents, right? So like you can
Mm-hmm.
force a trademark that hasn't been filed with the federal government. You don't get
Mm-hmm.
damages for that, really. That's the issue, is you don't really get a lot of damages for it. So you have some trademark protection. Like someone can't, I mean, they can just use your name. The issue is what happens if they do. You don't have any way to prove that you own the name, and they're not going to just take your
Right.
word for it. The way that you get people to stop using your name is you show them that they have a trademark. You can file a cease and desist with them and say like, hey, like this is my business name. I started using it first. But what do you do then when they say, no, I've been using it for the past 30 years? Like that,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
like you just have no protection without actually filing it with the federal government. And when you go to court, they want to see your trademark application. They want to see when you filed it, when you started using it, because the actual And when people say they're going to do their trademark themselves, the danger of that is it's a lawyer at the U.S. Patent and Trademark Office that reviews your application. So you're going to basically be negotiating for your trademark yourself with a lawyer. And some people get lucky and it doesn't get challenged, but a lot of people get challenged. Like hundreds of thousands of people have been challenged.
Right.
That's when the lawyer comes in. So you want to make sure that you get it trademarked. I would still send a cease and desist though, just so that they and that you can show that you were trying to defend the name. But inevitably, it's almost impossible to protect your name without proof that you own it.
Okay. Now, will it stop her from being able to get it trademarked though? So let's say she's not necessarily trying to get any damage from it, but she wants to still file the trademark for her business name since there isn't one on file.
Yeah, so it won't stop her if she was really using the name first.
Okay.
But if she wasn't by chance, then it could stop her.
Got it.
Else that's why I recommend, like, when you start, you do your LLC, you get all your brand colors and everything together before you invest like $5,000 in a brand and years of time making your name recognizable. You get your trademark done on the front end, and most people think they should do it on the back end. But if you're committed to the name, you should do it on the front end. Like that should be a startup cost. Like just budget that in. Budget $1,000 in to protect your name and legalize your business. It shouldn't cost it's gonna be a little bit more than that. But like even if you budgeted $1,000, like you'd be further along.
Right. You can at least get started.
Yeah, you could at least get started.
Got it. Okay.
Awesome.
Yeah, I'll just stop there. I want to ask you more because there's a lot here.
No worries. And what I'll do is I don't know if you have emails that I could send them stuff via email.
Sure.
So I can give them the link to the, sorry. Yeah, I'll do that. If you